All right. Martin Cruz, everybody. How are you doing, Martin?
I'm doing very well, Robbie.
My God,
How are
thank
you?
you. I'm great. I'm amazing right now. I'm like, I'm trying to catch my breath, honestly, because you are one of the biggest inspirations in, growing up of mine. Just, when it comes to art, when it comes to movies, just you were like the guy who just captured it all for me. So this is a big moment for me. But, you know,
That's
uh,
great, mate.
so for our listeners who don't know much about you, I want to kind of give them some background, and I just kind of want to delve into, you know, your life, and the stuff that you went through, and how you got into acting and whatnot, and some of the challenges you face. So yeah, let's Martin, can you tell me about where you grew up?
So I was born in London initially. I grew up there to the age of 10 and then moved to Perth, Western Australia
All right.
with my family. And my father was a New Zealander, and he basically his life aspiration was to be an actor, but he
Okay.
at that stage certainly he didn't see it as because he wanted to have a family more, and he didn't see a career as an actor being something that could fund a family.
I see.
I have a brother and sister, so with three children. So he became a television producer.
Got it.
However, he was heavily involved in kind of amateur theatre, and particularly in London, he was a member of a theatre called the Questers Theatre in Ealing in West London. And so I grew up, as a young kid from when I can first ever remember my first memory. Watching him rehearse plays at
Wow.
this, on the weekends and so on.
Okay.
And one of my earliest memories is, I would say, between the age of 3 or to 5. I'm not really sure, but
All
I
right.
remember being in a theatre watching two people on stage rehearsing, and I don't know whether one of them was my dad or not, but I remember thinking to myself, I can do that,
Wow.
what they're doing, and that's what I'm going to do.
Wow.
Yeah, and however, I didn't then go, so I better go to class, or I just went, that's what's going to happen, so I'm going to go and ride my bike in the
I see. So at that young of an age, you were already
meantime.
inspired to go to get into acting.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And
What?
we were quite, it was quite a, I don't want to say theatrical household, but I mean, my siblings are both, my sister has her own drama school
Oh,
in
wow.
Perth, and my brother is well, he acted for a while. We went to the same drama school, and then he now sings and writes and performs. He has a band, and
Oh,
so
nice.
we're all performers. Yeah,
All performers. So it sounds like you come from a whole lineage of the arts and
yeah,
performing. Yeah. So you were
yeah.
kind
It's
of,
in the blood.
so it's in the blood. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I mean, I'm a musician, and I
Hmm.
eventually want to get into acting. That's definitely something that I want to, delve into eventually. But
Hmm.
for me, and I'm not trying to take it off of you because this is about you, but I mean, for me, music was a huge part of my life. My father introduced music to our household when I mean, a baby. You know what I mean? So my earliest memories of childhood are all music. Was it like that for
Right.
you? Was it like that for you as far as the arts? Like,
Yeah. Well, as I say, that's one of my earliest memories is that
got
watching
you.
rehearsal. So I don't obviously remember a time where there wasn't theatre. My dad would quote Shakespeare all the time, and my mum wasn't a performer, but she loved theatre. She loved plays, and so it was just and that phrase, the smell of the grease paint, the roar of the crowd. You've heard that before? That
Actually, that's new to
it
me.
Okay, so it's kind of an old phrase, but what it basically means is, when performing gets under your skin, and you
Right.
then you can't. There's nothing you can do about it.
I
And the grease paint that they're talking about is the old style of theatrical makeup. They were literally these sticks of kind of grease paint.
that
And
makes
my
sense.
dad had a tin of, back then, because this is, like the 70s,
Right.
he had a tin of his makeup, and I distinctly remember the smell,
Okay.
and he
Wow.
would, like, I remember him making my face up as an old man, and, all this sort of stuff.
And you, bro,
So,
you're probably
yeah.
loving it. You were probably
No,
loving
I mean, I adored it.
it.
It's, but as I say, with the funny thing was that I didn't, a lot of the other children around the amateur theatre, they then
Hmm.
appeared in the Christmas pantomime,
Hmm.
and I remember seeing them and thinking, how come they get to do that and I don't? But then I didn't then go, oh, I want to be in the Christmas pantomime. I was
Hmm.
like, no, this is something for an older person to do.
I see.
I don't know why I thought that, but that's,
Okay, got it. So let's fast forward a little bit. So that's essentially your childhood. So like, let's say, I mean, obviously this carried in well into your whole life. So I mean, this was something that you
Mhm.
you you knew you wanted to do. So when you got up into around your teenage years, was that when you started to break into, more theater, or how did it work? How did that look for you?
Yeah, so I had this strange notion that I was going to be discovered walking down the street. I
I
thought
think everybody
that's,
does, honestly. I
well,
mean,
yeah,
I certainly thought that when I was younger. I was like, I'm gonna be a freaking rock star. I'm gonna take over the world by the time I'm 16. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. And so it was, it sort of was a secret that I kept to myself, that I didn't actually ever say to people, oh, no, I'm going to be an actor.
I see.
I would sort of, when I was at high school, I kind of
Hmm.
went, obviously English and art and things were the subjects I excelled at.
Right.
But then I didn't go, well, actually, I'm going to be an actor. I sort of went, oh, well, let's see if I can go into journalism, or I can, what other things I can do,
Okay.
kind of secretly going, but someone's going to discover me instead
Right.
one day.
Okay.
And so when I left high school, I went and traveled through Europe for a year, and then I came back and I joined the workforce just to earn some money, and I didn't know what else to do at that point while I was trying to work out what I was going to do.
Okay.
And so I was working as an air conditioning water tower serviceman,
Wow. who
which
would
meant that
who would have thought? You know what
yeah,
I mean? Gosh,
well, yeah,
you never think about those things. You just see the artist. You know what I mean? You never,
yeah,
up in, not unless you actually meet them and talk to them and have these types of conversations, you assume that that it's just been stardom their entire lives. But that's in reality, that's not the case. I mean, if you're an
not at all,
artist,
no.
not at all. If you're an artist, 9 out of 10 times you lived a very much common type of life, and you had
Mhm.
struggles. You had, you know we're just human beings at the end of the day, and we have to make a living. And
Yeah,
obviously you did what you had to do, so I respect that. You know what I mean? Like, you weren't just sort of born into it. I mean, at least not technically. You know what I mean? Like,
that's right. Yeah,
you still very much had to go into the workforce and figure out who you were and what everything was about.
and I think if you have a life of stardom from the beginning, then you kind of don't have a reference point for real. When I say real,
Absolutely.
I mean the majority of people's lives. So as an
Right.
actor, how can you portray a real honest person? You know, um,
Right.
I'm thinking of Leonardo DiCaprio, who I think it's phenomenal that he has had the life that he's had, because he was a star from, what was he, 15 or something, in
Right.
What's Eating Gilbert Grape,
Yeah.
and yet somehow he can play. I mean, he hardly ever plays ordinary people, but he does from time to time. He somehow, in the crazy life that he's had of, you know, superstardom, and
Yeah.
that he remains connected, but so many you know, child stars
Yeah.
and you know, young people who get stardom early, they just lose the plot because it's so far removed from
Yes.
what most people are experiencing. So,
Right. Right. You're right.
you
That's a
know,
good
I've done a
point.
lot of crazy jobs in my time, you know, to pay the bills or whatever,
Right.
and I find them very valuable
Absolutely.
at those times. Less so now. I figured that
I think you've done
I've
pretty
had
well for
enough of.
yourself. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's a good point. I think if you're born into it, or at least if you start kind of early, you know, like you mentioned, you lose the plot. I mean,
Hmm.
your life essentially becomes a business at a very young age, and you're not really ready to kind of delve into that.
No.
You know what I mean? I honestly,
That's right.
I don't think for me, it's not until like your honestly, late 20s that you're actually kind of gotten your feet wet, and you know, you know, you kind of know more or less who you are and what you're passionate about. But you know, at that young of an age, you're kind of just doing what. Okay, they say I'm good at this. I'll just do that. You know, you don't really have
Yeah,
you don't have an identity, is what I'm trying to say.
that's right. And also in the arts, you know, yeah, acting, and but also all music, and also, you know, visual arts and so on,
Right.
because you have an audience for your work uh, in a much more immediate way than you do, say, if you work um, in a bank, or you know, you're providing
I see what you're
some
saying.
other service, but it's not that the audience you know, the people that you're providing it for see your work and get to comment.
Exactly.
Because of that,
I
in the
see.
arts, um, uh, there can be this for young people, is you kind of believe your own press, you know, and it's not an uncommon thing, particularly in the film industry, for young actors to just get a bit carried away with who they think they are and so
Yeah.
on, and it's not until people, funnily enough, experience some kind of failure,
Hmm.
or some, you know, things not going the way that they thought they were going to go, that then they become more human. And for actors, you know, it's quite often when they become much better actors.
Right. So that brings me to my next. That's a great point, and that brings me to my next sort of, I guess, question is, could you kind of give us an idea of the types of, I guess, quote unquote failures that you might have encountered? I mean, you know, during your professional acting and or you know, whatever entertainment career, what types of, like, you know, hindrances or obstacles did you have? Like, I mean, you mentioned that you weren't immediately successful. So, you
Mm.
know, what types of, I guess, roadblocks, or what kind of things were kind of, you know, what kind of failures were you encountering and during that process?
Yeah, well, many and varied. You know, you kind of go through periods, really. When I first, as I said, I moved to Australia, and I eventually then went to drama school in Perth at the
R-
West Australian Academy of Performing Arts, which is where
That's
Hugh
right.
Jackman went. And
That's
yeah,
right. That's right.
um, and so in Perth is the most isolated city in the world, so you can't really you know, work as an actor full time in Perth
I see.
alone. You have to move to Melbourne or Sydney,
I
on the
see.
east coast. So, you know, I moved to Melbourne, and I got an agent straight away, and straight away I got into it. I played Romeo in a production of Romeo and Juliet,
Very
and
nice.
then kind of nothing, you know.
Ah,
Um, and in fact, I'm thinking now of one particular moment where I this is actually a good example, really.
okay.
I audition for, they were doing a production of Hair, the musical
Yes,
Hair.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I'd studied musical theatre at drama school.
Right.
So I have a Bachelor of Arts in musical theatre. I did a
Very good.
3-year I have a university degree in musical theatre.
Very nice.
And so they had kind of general auditions for this production of Hair, and I went along with my girlfriend who was in my class at drama school.
Okay.
And she got a call back, and I didn't.
I see.
And I remember, like, that was a blow, because I'm
blow,
like,
yeah.
I've studied 3 years here. I've got a Bachelor of Arts, and I
Right.
can't even get a second audition.
Oh man, that
for
must
this
have.
thing. Yeah, and it was kind of like there were two voices inside my head, and one of them was going, well, everything's bad, and I hate the world, kind of thing. And
yeah, I guess I'm not cut out for this kind of thing. I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
like
not fair, and
right. Oh man,
and I'll never get a job.
Oh my God, yes.
And then the other voice was saying, learn the lesson. What's the lesson here?
Wow.
And so I started to, and at that stage I was having a singing lesson every week, even if I couldn't afford to eat. I was.
Wow. That's beautiful. That right there is the epitome of why I started this show right there. I just have to stop you. Like that, to me, that is a prime example of somebody who is dedicated to the craft, no matter what it takes, even if they have to go hungry, even if they know they're going to be broke and their whole paycheck is going to be spent on rehearsal time or a coach or some type of training. That at the end of the day is what makes this all worth it. And that's what tells me that you are a true artist. So I must applaud you for that, Martin.
Thank you.
Bravo, man. Bravo. That's
Thank
inspirational.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was having singing lesson a week, and at that stage I was still trying to work out what singing was about. Because I couldn't sing when I started, and I didn't find it easy.
Oh.
And so as a result of this not getting the call back, I started to think about everything that anyone had ever said to me about singing thus far. And one of the things that I kept remembering is that it was said to me by a guy who actually couldn't sing, who was the musical director of the musical theatre course.
All right.
At WAPA, and he said to me one day, he said, if it doesn't hurt, how can it be bad for you? And I thought, well, that kind of makes sense. And up to that point, I was such a diligent student that every time, I'd do a warm up every day, and I was kind of trying to find this way of creating sound that was the correct way.
I see.
And thinking about this, I realized that I never at that point sang for the joy of it. And I thought, okay, so if it doesn't hurt, then it's fine. There's not one correct way. And so whatever sound I make, as long as it doesn't hurt, it's fine. So I started to sing for fun, just, like around the house. I'd start, rather than singing,
just kind of like
trying to sound like Pavarotti, I would just riff and,
Right.
And ironically, my singing teacher was away that week. He was interstate, so I couldn't have a lesson. So it was 2 weeks before I had another lesson.
All right.
And when he came back, I went for my lesson, and he said, how have you been? And I said, it's been one revelation after another. And I said, I just feel like, like I've discovered this, blah, blah, blah. And he said, okay, well, let's hear. And we started to do exercise, and I still remember his face, like staring at me
in pure awe.
Yeah. And he was like, you sound like a completely different
absolutely
singer.
Wow.
And then the coda to the story is that when my girlfriend had her callback, she got sick.
Oh,
And this was in the days before mobile phones, and she
the
said,
plot thickens. The plot thickens.
"Yeah," she said, "Can you go down and tell them that I can't make the callback and see if I can
Wow.
reschedule?" And so I drove down to the theater and I said, my
Uh-huh.
girlfriend, she's due at 11 o'clock or whatever, and she
Uh-huh.
can't make it. Any chance to reschedule? Which there wasn't, unfortunately. And then I said, so is there any chance I can take her time?
Why not throw it out there? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
well, I mean, while I'm here, by the way,
yeah,
I have a great voice.
yeah. And
Pick it.
so exactly. So and she said, only because you've got so much front, I'll let you do it. So I went in
Wow.
and sang again, and I didn't get the show, but um, I did like I was so happy with what I
With your
did.
performance, with your
With
performance.
yeah, and then ironically, 10 years later, the next time they did Hair in Australia, I played
Uh-huh.
Claude. I played the lead, and I didn't even
There
have to
you
audition.
go.
No. Yeah,
Wow. Another round of applause for I mean, your sheer perseverance, Martin. I'm just blown away by it because like I feel like you're unfazed by, the sort of obstacles that you've encountered. Like it's almost like they're fuel for you. Like you see them as lessons, which I love. Like that's beautiful because I do the same thing. When things don't go my way, I say, well, how can I turn this into a positive? How can I instead learn something from this? Because if I just give up, then what are my efforts for, right? Like
yes,
it's
exactly. Yeah,
like no, like I have to somehow, if that way didn't work, well then I have to try something else,
yeah,
basically. And it sounds like that's essentially what you did. And I mean, it obviously turned out pretty good for you. You got the lead role the next time around. It's like, wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, the one thing, because I teach nowadays as well, and the one thing that you
Awesome.
can't teach is the desire.
Right, the passion,
So
exactly.
yeah, so all through those early years when I was trying to learn to sing and so on,
Uh-huh.
and failing and having all of these roadblocks, there would be times where I would be going, why do I want this so badly? And I didn't know. I didn't know where
Oh
it
my,
came from, but the fact that I wanted it was okay. If I want it this much, then there's got to be a way.
exactly.
And so it's Judy Dench, her advice to young actors, I heard in an interview once. She said, make sure there's nothing else that you can do or you want to do in your life, because if you don't love it, you'll hate it
Yes.
because of the ups and downs
That's
and so on. And I absolutely, in my experience, that's absolutely true. That
100%.
yeah,
100%, I would say. I mean, and that certainly rings true for any artist. I mean, if you're a
hmm
musician, an actor, voice actor, you know what I mean? It's like this isn't the easiest of industries to get into, and
no,
and to say the least. And from a personal sort of perspective, I have the same sorts of epiphanies, Martin. It's like I find myself, wondering, man, like why do I want to go into this so bad? Because every year of my life since I've been on this earth, all I can think about is music, being on a stage, being
yeah,
in front of people, performing, or being behind a camera, or doing something with creativity.
uh-huh.
If it doesn't involve creativity for me, it doesn't stimulate me the same way. Like when I go to work, I'm not as stimulated as I am when I'm, let's say, rehearsing with my band, or when I'm creating a song. Like I can spend hours upon hours, dishing out, a riff or a song, and I'm not getting paid for it. But I mean, at the end of the
Yeah,
day, it just brings me so much joy that you just
hmm
can't explain. And
yeah,
it's something you can't teach, like you mentioned. It's something that has to kind of come from within, 100%.
yeah.
If it's not coming from within, then it's probably not for you. But see,
That's right.
you obviously had that fire. I can hear it
Yeah.
in what you're telling me, and I certainly feel the same way. So we're best friends now. And awesome. So as you know, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. I think
Mhm.
you know, growing up, just to give you a little bit of background, you know, it started with the games. You know, my cousin was playing the games, and I just was like, "What is this? Like they're killing zombies in a mansion. What the hell's going on?" Like, I don't. I was just so, I was so infatuated with this game that I was
Mhm.
freaked, but I was freaked out at the same time. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know if I loved it or if I hated it. I was just infatuated with it. So, I mean, long story short, I fell in love with the game. They made it into a film, which you appeared in.
Mhm.
You played Kaplan, one of the
Yeah.
commandos. Now, let's talk about that, please. Let us please talk about that because I think I've waited about 15 years just to have this conversation, and we're actually having it right now. I mean, actually, maybe more.
Yeah.
Now it's been like 18 years. I don't know. I always somehow
Yeah.
knew I was gonna talk to you, and here we are. So it's like it was meant to be. It was meant to be, Martin. So tell me about that. Was that? I mean, obviously you had roles before that, and we'll get into
Mhm.
that as well. But I
Mhm.
mean, for fans of the game, such as myself, who are probably fanning out right now as we speak, hearing this, tell us about that. Like, what? How did you get the audition? Like, how did you land the gig? Was it
Mhm.
something, you know, like, and then we'll go ahead and talk about the rest of the deal, but let's start with that. How did you
Okay.
land the gig?
So the in London, the casting director of Resident Evil that Impact Pictures used to cast not the lead roles, but sorry, not the lead roles, not the stars,
Right,
but
right, right,
me, for
right,
example, and
right. You were the
various.
star though. You were the star. Let's get that
Oh,
straight.
thanks, man.
It wasn't Mila. It certainly wasn't Michelle. It was you. Let's get that straight. Okay, for the
Thank you,
record,
mate.
for the record.
Um, so yes, so this her name is Suzanne Smith,
Okay,
and she had been a musical theatre casting director.
all right.
Um, and so she knew of me from um, that side of the business. And it's one of the things about the business is it tends to kind of segregate a bit, just through sheer volume of people. Like casting directors need to kind of narrow things down
Absolutely. So
a
how do
lot.
they go about doing that? I mean, what kind of determines who they pick on?
So obviously they get a brief of these are the characters that we're looking for. These are the types of people that we're looking for,
Okay.
and Jeremy Bolt, who's the
Ah,
producer of
yes.
Resident Evil, who's now
I
a
know
very good
Jeremy
friend of
very
mine.
well. Awesome.
Right? Yeah, he's a great man, and he said to me, because actually Suzanne came and my agent both came to Berlin onto the set about
Okay.
3/4 of the way through filming, and we had lunch together with Jeremy, and he one of the things he said was I don't need Suzanne, I don't need someone like Suzanne to find me Mila or Michelle, or
Right.
James Purefoy.
Right.
She said I need her to find me people like you
Yes.
who I don't know about.
Okay.
And I'd played, when I first got to London, I played Marius in Les Miserables in the
Yes.
West End. Like
That's
that's where
correct.
she knew me from, and then I'd auditioned a couple of times.
I see.
So essentially, I got a call from my agent on a Friday afternoon, and I was rehearsing. I was working on a workshop um, of a new musical, and he said, I'm biking this script around to your place. This is back what they did then. They'd have a motorcycle courier bring the script to you rather than
Right.
email it.
There's no email. There's no none of that, man. I see.
Well, there was email,
Well,
but not. You
not
couldn't
like
send big
today,
attachments. I think. Yeah.
right? And it wasn't at the tip of your fingers like it is today. It's like you get it
Yeah.
that second. You know what I mean? Like there was actually a
Yeah.
process to that back in the days. Homeboy was
Yeah.
riding a bike.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome.
And he said, you've got an audition at 10 o'clock on Monday before, I've already spoken to the producers of the workshop, and they said you can start late. And so I went home, and there was the script for Resident Evil. And I knew what Resident Evil was, but
Right.
unlike you, because I was a gamer for sure
All
back
right.
then, but I
Awesome.
the reason I didn't play Resident Evil was because
Okay.
I looked at the zombies and all of that, and what I found, my experience of playing games, is that I'd walk around and the game would be in my head.
I
And
see.
say if I was playing Tomb Raider, for example, I'd be like, you know what, I didn't try to move that icon on the altar or something, or,
So that's the kind of like mentality you have when you play games. Is that what you're saying? Like the game
yeah,
stays in
yeah.
your
If you're
head. Like,
playing
oh,
a
I should
role
have.
play game,
Okay. Okay. I
so,
see what you're
and
saying.
I was like, I don't want to
Absolutely.
walk around with zombies in my head. I hadn't even sampled it. I just saw it and I thought that looks really disturbing.
Right.
So, but I knew what it was, but I'd never played it.
I see. Okay.
And I read the script, and really liked it, and
Very
spent the
good.
weekend, working on I think I did 2 audition scenes. Went in on the Monday, auditioned
Okay.
for Suzanne, and then went to the workshop. And then Tuesday I heard nothing.
Oh,
And
were you kind of
I
concerned?
thought, yeah, I was like,
Well,
I
first of
didn't
all,
get it.
how eager were you to get this role? Were you like, I got to get this thing, or was it kind of like, you know what, I like this, so I'm gonna try it out? How did that look for you?
I mean, it's interesting, because you look back. I look back at that period, and the opportunities that came my way. Because quite often things happen when you're young.
Okay.
That's when you're kind of at your hottest, in your 20s and 30s.
Sure.
And certainly for me, I was kind of naive to what that meant.
Got you.
I remember I had an audition. What was that movie with? I can't even remember. Unfaithful. Do you remember that movie, Unfaithful?
I think so.
Uh,
Sounds familiar.
it was Adrian Lyne directed it, and I had an audition for that movie with the director. It was me, the director, and this incredibly hot actress in a hotel room. And I remember at the time being kind of like, this is too much for me.
Really?
Like I can't
Interesting.
fathom the fact that I'm here with the director. Like I haven't gone through a casting director. I'm
You
like,
went
this is
straight to the source. Yeah.
yeah, international director. And, he's seriously considering me for this
Was it overwhelming?
role.
Was it
Yeah, it was
overwhelming?
kind
Yeah.
of like, and one of the things I've learned, in fact, this is one of the things I did in the Resident Evil audition. And
Okay.
this is,
Tell me.
advice for
I
young
need to know.
actors. Yeah.
We need to know. Tell us, Martin.
Is when you're going for an audition, it's your audition, and so often, like, we'll go in and we'll go, oh, what are they looking for? Oh, I hope they like me, or, oh,
Right. You start to
God, I
doubt
hope I get
yourself.
it.
All those doubts just swim around your head. I think it's very human.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you let them run the audition. And
Exactly.
and I kind of did that. And looking back on, for example, on the Unfaithful, because it was Richard Gere and I can't remember. I always forget her name. Really good actress who played the other part. And then,
Okay.
anyway, and when I look back, I would absolutely, if I was in that situation now, I'd go, hang on, can we stop for a second?
Oh, wow.
Can we move the chairs around, because I'm feeling, I'm not like, I need to arrange this so that I can give my best performance for you,
Absolutely.
because you're spending all this time sitting here, because the thing is, when people audition, what they want is for the character to come through the door.
Pretty much.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
And they want you to be great. You want you to be great. And
Right.
somehow there's this disconnect, and you go in and you don't take the time, and you don't set things up for yourself so that you do a good job. And in the Resident Evil audition,
Okay.
I'd worked one of the scenes. I said, no, I want to be low down. And I made Suzanne move the camera.
Wow.
And then I said, hang on, I need to get I'm not quite in the headspace. And I said, give me a second. And, I took a few minutes. In fact, at one point she said, I'm going to leave the room for a second. I've just got to go
Right. You need to clear
into the
your
office.
head.
She said,
Yeah.
you get your head together, like I really, a bit more than I ever had. I've been working with an acting coach, and there was a whole lot of the result of that I put into this audition. So I really kind of ran the audition the way I wanted. And then I said, I didn't quite get that. Can we do that again?
So you are able to do that then when you're
Totally.
Okay, that's good. I didn't know
that. They want you to be
in your element.
Yeah, I mean,
You know what I
as soon
mean?
as they cast you, as soon as they go, it's a relief to everyone. They go, oh, great.
Right.
That guy is exactly what we're looking for.
Right.
And so you want to make it. You don't want to upset them, but you want to help yourself as much as possible and
Absolutely.
say,
Absolutely.
you imagine I'm sure Meryl Streep never auditions anymore, but if Meryl Streep goes into a room, like, she's not going to go, oh, I didn't quite feel right about that. She's going to go, I need to take the time to get this
Right. Get this
in the ballpark.
Right.
And, so if it's good enough for Meryl Streep, and so, so I didn't hear anything. And then on the Wednesday morning, my agent phoned me. I was on the way to this workshop, and he said, you did a really great audition for Resident Evil, because they were already all in Berlin. In fact,
oh, really? So you were still in London at this point?
I was still in London. So the Wednesday morning, this is Wednesday morning, that day in Berlin, the rest of the cast were assembled and read through the script.
Oh my goodness!
Together with someone else reading Kaplan, and another actor. I was the last person to be cast.
Wow!
And so they were all there.
Okay.
And my agent said, they want to fly you to Berlin tomorrow.
Wow.
To meet with the director and so on. And the thing is, I said, this workshop that I'm doing, which is 2 weeks work, that all of these people have put in, we're actually doing the performance tomorrow afternoon, Thursday afternoon, which is when he wanted me to fly to Berlin. And I was like,
man,
I can't suddenly go, sorry, everyone,
I'm going to Berlin.
See you later, because we've all put 2 weeks work in. Because my agent thought the performance was on the Friday, but I was like, no, it's Thursday afternoon. We're going to rehearse in the morning on Thursday and then do the performance after lunch on Thursday.
I see.
So I said.
So it was kind of like one of those pack up and leave kind of things. It was like,
that's the nature of the beast. Yeah.
Oh my God. So.
Yeah.
And
so I said.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go on.
No, I'm sorry. I don't even know what I was thinking. Go ahead.
Okay. So I said to him, is there any chance they can fly me to Berlin tonight? I'll stay overnight, meet with the director first thing in the morning, Thursday morning, and then fly me back to get back by lunchtime so that I can do the performance Thursday afternoon. And he said, that sounds like it'll work. Pack a bag. I'll let you know. And that's what happened. So I finished rehearsal that day, and then out to Heathrow and business class flight to Berlin.
Nice.
And and then I arrive, kind of don't know what time of night. I didn't get a lot of sleep that night. To the Hyatt Hotel in Potsdamer Platz, and there was a new version of the script.
Oh no!
In the room. I don't know that it affected the scenes that I was in, but I read the new script. Funnily enough, in the original script that I read, the train sequence at the end.
Absolutely.
It was actually an elevator. It wasn't a train.
Oh.
They went up, and the liquor kind of grabbed the bottom of the elevator, and
Ah,
like it was a big, like a a freight elevator.
interesting. I didn't know that. Well, I mean, of course I didn't know that, but that's
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah.
So
And
basically, they changed like the setting around. I mean, I guess
yeah,
that.
well, he made it the train, and there were various other things that he
Uh,
written, and I really liked the changes, and was
right.
um
Awesome.
and yeah, so then I worked on the pieces, and I got a few hours sleep, and then I was up, and then I met with Paul
Paul
the next
Anderson,
morning.
the Mr. Paul.
And Paul Anderson, yeah.
he's a
And
he's a bit of a controversial guy for me at least, only because I love the Resident Evil films. I just think, as a true fan, you know, he kind of he steered a bit away from like the essence of the game, and
uh-huh.
that but there was, like I said, they were great films, but they didn't really pay too much, I guess, homage to, like, the game itself.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, you probably wouldn't know that, obviously, since you weren't a huge fan of the game. But I mean, for me personally, I was like, when I saw the film, I still loved it, but I was like, man, Paul, it was a completely different concept, like the concept of Alice and the Hive that had never been done in a game ever. So
Well,
go ahead.
because of course the first film was a prequel to the game.
Ah, is that what the whole concept was?
Yeah. So you know how you start the first game, the helicopter, they find the helicopter crash,
That's right, in the Raccoon
and
Forest,
then
right?
and then they run to the mansion, and they
Exactly.
go in. So the first movie is supposed to be what happened
Right
before
before the mansion.
before that.
I see. Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
basically, it's like Resident Evil Zero, because there is a Zero, which is before the mansion.
Uh-huh.
And I guess it operates similar. So okay, I never thought about it that way. Well, now I know something. Thanks, Martin.
No worries. Yeah, because at back then when we were filming, they said, the idea was that if there was going to be a sequel, that then Capcom would work with Impact Pictures and Constantine Film, and that they would actually then sync up the games with the movies, so they'd work on similar characters together, and
Okay. Wow. So that
yeah.
was
But
that
then
was
I guess
that was a thing that was gonna happen.
that was going to happen. Yeah, that was the idea.
All right. I mean, they
Um,
definitely. I'm not gonna say they didn't stay entirely true to the game, because they did include a lot of major characters. I just think more than anything, the plot is what was different. But I think that was more so
uh-huh.
due to the fact that uh, I'm assuming that Paul was afraid that audiences wouldn't be as receptive to a direct adaptation of the game. So he kind of
Yeah,
developed
maybe. Yeah,
an original sort of script, like, here's this, let's make it about, let's make, he's more of an action guy, right? I mean,
definitely.
you
Yeah,
know him, better
yeah.
than I do, so I feel like he wanted to make it more entertaining, because
Uh-huh.
obviously not everybody in the world's a Resident Evil fan and doesn't know much about the game, so I think he wanted to make it very much universal. That's my hypothesis. I don't know if that's the case, but I
Hmm.
feel like that might have been why he kind of went the whole Alice route in the Hive, and he kept
Well,
elements.
also you've got Mila Jovovich. Like you
Yeah.
kind of have to stick with her.
Yeah, right. That's
She's the star of the franchise. So you can kill everyone else, but you kind of got to stick with her.
but why they
You
have
know.
to, man.
But also the other thing that's interesting, and I've only played the first game,
Okay, the original, the
so I
classic.
don't know whether this carries on through the other games, although I imagine it probably does. Is the way that the game is set up is you're a commando, you're a crack commando, specially trained, but unlike, let's say, Tomb Raider, where you have 360-degree movement of the camera and you're following the your character
Right.
from behind, but you can come around in front, you can see everywhere. In Resident Evil, you're walking away from the camera quite a distance, and then all of a sudden the camera angle changes
Right, fixed angles. Yeah,
to,
it's a
yeah,
fixed
in
angle.
front of you. And so you then have to change the direction that you're pushing the joystick.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And yeah, and so so you can be walking down a corridor looking one way, and suddenly the camera angle changes and you realize there's a zombie behind you,
Oh my God, right? That's the
which is
best.
walking, and it's walking
Right
very
into you.
slowly, and you
Yeah.
go, ah, like,
Yes.
and you're trying to shoot, and you're shooting, you're wasting all your bullets
All
and
your
shooting them
bullets.
into the wall,
Yes, right.
and
That's
then you step back too far and the camera angle changes again, you can't see the zombie again. It's very difficult to do that with a movie,
exactly.
because the
Exactly.
the irony is that you are this elite fighting machine, and yet you can't even run in a straight line when you're playing the game. Do you
Right.
know what I mean?
I know
And
exactly what you mean.
that's the genius of the game.
Right.
And once you get into the film version, he, like Paul, had to find all these different ways that we were handicapped,
I see.
and
So
so
that, I guess, I mean, that's a good, I didn't even think about it that way. I mean, that's why I kind of needed to hear from you, because
uh-huh.
I was always kind of kicking myself like, man, I wish Paul would have done this or that. But now that makes so much sense, because
Yeah,
these are two very different platforms. I mean, a video game is, one thing, but a movie is completely different. So you
yeah,
have to, you're kind of, I don't want to say you're limited, but in a way, you kind of have to, tailor it to like what you just mentioned. I mean, you're not able to include those same fixed angles without losing the essence of the film. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, you
You can,
it'd be
absolutely.
interesting to kind of experiment and go, well, I wonder if we could do that and change the angle, and so the audience sees that there's a zombie,
I
but
say
the commando doesn't.
I say we talk to Paul and have that happen
Yeah,
then.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but no, that's a good point, and I never thought about that. But yeah, he did limit you guys in the film. I mean, gosh, he killed off
yeah. Like we ran out of ammunition, and certainly with my character, this is the other thing, is when I read the script,
uh-huh.
I was like, this character is the best character in the movie.
Oh, hands down, hands
Yeah,
down.
on the page, regardless of anything that I might do with it, like, he's got this full character arc where he comes into the mansion and he's protected. He doesn't even he's got a 5-shooter pistol on his hip, but
Right.
he doesn't even pull it out. You know, they're they're all jumping around him and knocking people out with their guns out, and he
Right.
just walks straight to the computer terminal,
Right.
and he's protected, you know, and then all of a sudden he's the only one left,
Right. So he kind of has to
kind of
step
thing.
up. He has to
And
step
he's got to step
like
up. And then, so he kind of manages to step up, and then right at the 11th hour, even he comes, he gets mauled,
right, right.
and
I think
still, like, it's all about, he's got grit, and he managed to come back and rescue them. And then right
yes,
at the 11th hour,
yes,
so
right. Right. Well, that's
I
the
was like, sorry, go on.
oh, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to, I said, this is a really interesting character here that is not a stereotypical action.
Mhm,
He's not just the guy like Bill Pullman in Aliens, where he's going,
mhm.
"Oh, we're all gonna die, man." He's not doing that. However, he's
Your American accent is freaking phenomenal, by the way. How do you do that? Like, I'm not how. Obviously, it takes practice, but have you always had a knack for accents? Because that is something that I've always loved about you. Whether it's Resident Evil, whether it's Luis Amor Rodriguez in Dream Team, or whether it's you've done a couple other films where you were playing like a Southerner from like Louisiana one time. And
yeah,
yeah, what was that film?
yeah. That was Scarlet.
Scarlet.
Yeah, it was
Yes,
a Cajun. I was a Cajun
you were a
cop.
Cajun,
Yeah.
exactly, from Louisiana, and I guess. So tell me about that. Really quickly. I don't want to digress too much, but like
Mhm.
your accent. I mean, I didn't even know you were Australian until I
Right.
saw some of your other interviews. I'm like, what the hell? Freaking Martin's Australian. I thought you were a
Yeah,
total American dude who grew up like in like the Midwest. But then
right.
it turns out you were born in London. You're from Australia. It's
Yeah.
like, when did this happen? What I
Yeah.
thought Kaplan was American, but I'm not at all. I'm not at all disappointed by that. I think that actually made you as a person even cooler to me.
Thanks, man.
So yeah, like the accents. Tell me about the accents. How are you so good at them? Why are you so good at them?
So I think I have a natural
Probably an ear for
proficiency
it.
for like I'm into language, you know, like
Same.
uh, as when I left high school, I lived in Italy for a year, and I picked up the language very quickly.
Very nice.
Um,
Not to mention the women.
and I went there with a buddy, and I saw that he didn't get it as quickly as I did, you know,
Right, right, right.
and as I said, when I was growing up, Dad was always quoting Shakespeare, and you know, language was a thing that we were into. So,
Right.
um, and so when it comes to accents, my personal, obviously, I've done training, and some accents are easier than others, but
Sure.
I I kind of find the place in my mouth where it sits, where I feel like it sits, and I
Okay.
might have um, a particular phrase. So, for example, with the Cajun, um, you know, my manager,
Mhm.
my American manager, sent me to the stuff for the Scarlet audition, and he said, "Can you do a Cajun accent? Can anyone?" He's like, "What is a Cajun accent?"
Exactly.
And and he said to me, "I guess, you know, where do you find a Cajun accent? Watch the what's it called? That movie with Dennis Quaid, the big."
Yeah.
Anyway, there's this terrible that I've forgotten the name of it.
That's okay.
Uh, and Dennis Quaid played a Cajun detective,
I
and
probably don't even know that movie, but yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's a while ago now. And then I was in London at the time and contacted the accent coach of the Royal Shakespeare Company, who I'd been working with on Woman in White, and she said, "Watch this movie."
Okay.
Um, and
So did you have to spend
um,
like hours upon hours just listening to this stuff and like is that
well,
like
no, I didn't have hours. I had a kind of a weekend, and I was doing this Woman in White,
okay.
an Andrew Lloyd Webber show in London, and but so what I did, there was a line in the script
Mhm.
that said it was something like, uh, "Why is it you artists? Why is it you artists never seem satisfied with the names your parents saw fit to bestow upon you?" And
Oh my god.
I was listening to the accent, and I can't, and that phrase, I thought that's how that will work. Why is it you artists never seem satisfied with the names your parents saw fit to, and so that would be my
Got it.
trigger to the whole of the rest of the.
Wow. So that's your little
You know
trick
what I mean?
then. You kind of like find that
Yeah, you
you find
find.
that
Yeah,
sweet spot.
yeah,
Okay. Because I feel what you're saying. See, I used to watch a lot of Guy Ritchie films.
yeah.
When I was like 19, I had this obsession with Snatch. And I
Oh
just
yeah,
I
yeah,
loved
yeah,
that Essex sort of like you know the Cockney slang. Like I would find
yeah.
myself quoting Snatch and what was that, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Looked
You've
at
seen
yeah.
that?
That's right.
I'd always be
Yeah.
like, right, let's separate the boys from the spies, the needy from the greedy, the ones that trust me from the ones that don't. Because if we can't see value up here today, we're not up here shopping, we're up here shoplifting, yeah? I
Very
just,
good, mate.
thanks, man. I love accents. I love language.
Uh-huh.
I love it. I mean, I guess maybe it's my musical side or what. I don't really know, but it's
Yeah,
just
for sure.
something in the brain. It just when I hear language, it's literally music to my ears. So
Hmm.
I have to emulate it. You know what I mean?
That's the other thing is if you have a musical ear,
Exactly.
it's easier for you to hear the music of the accent.
It
Because some people, you know, they just can't hear it. You know.
They can't, yeah, 100%. And I guess we don't think about that because we don't really have to. But you know, I guess to like somebody who probably doesn't have that skill, it doesn't come as naturally. But for me, and obviously for you, that sort of just is like it's kind of like you know second nature almost. You know, it's like
Hmm.
I got this. You know what I mean? I literally had to see the film one time, and it was already stuck in my head because movies just get stuck in my head. And I swear to God, Martin, I just remember the script the next day or even that day. I can walk out of the
Right.
theater. I can walk out of the theater. I had to see. I'll just watch something and then I already know what he's saying. I already know that
Right.
line for at least the punchlines. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, but no, but Martin, your accent, your American accent is phenomenal. So yeah, So okay, I guess back to Resident Evil. So tell me about the experience. Like, how was the experience on the set? Like, what was it like interacting with Mila Jovovich? You know, like Michelle Rodriguez, Pasquale. You know, Paul. Even like, tell me about like your experience with them. Like, was there a lot of camaraderie? Were you guys like a bunch of buddies?
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
were you guys partying? Did you maybe get to
Totally, all of those things, mate. Yeah.
Oh,
So we. So what happened after I auditioned? They flew me back. I met Paul in the morning.
okay.
Flew me back to be back home by lunchtime, and I landed at Heathrow. Turned my phone on, and there's a message from my agent saying you got the part.
Excellent. I bet you that was the happiest
Uh,
day of your life.
yeah. So I was like, rock and roll,
Let's do
and
it.
then we did the performance, but they said you got the part. We want you to fly back tomorrow.
All right.
And I said to them, well, if I fly back tomorrow, I'm going to have to come back at some point because, like, I got to
Yeah.
pack up my
I have
house,
a
or I've got
life here
to,
at home. I have
yeah,
I have an
because
apartment, I have
it's
a house, you
that's
know.
it. It was three months, I said, whereas if they give me the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
then I can go there and be there.
So you bought some time.
Yeah, I said, can I, because they obviously won't be working Saturday, so it's literally one day.
Right.
So so that's what happened. So I had this Friday, Saturday to sort myself out, and then flew on the Sunday.
Okay.
Was it Sunday or no? Maybe it was the Monday, because I literally checked into the hotel, and then the car picked me up from the airport, checked into the hotel, and then I went straight to the gun range.
Oh,
And
straight.
that's where I met.
Nice.
Straight in, like, boom, here we go. And there was snow. The snow was like 6 inches thick on the ground.
Right.
And that's where I met Michelle.
How's she?
So she's cool, man.
Is she cool?
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
imagine she's cool. I mean, she seems like she just seems like somebody you can just talk to. Like, you just have a beer with. Like, what's up, Michelle? Let's get drunk.
Yeah. So that was the first thing, was me and her at the gun range learning how to shoot. And then we went from there to this climbing gym where I met the rest of the cast and James Butler, the stunt coordinator, and we did combat training.
So it was all mechanics in the beginning. It was all mechanics in the beginning. Like, it was all like, we need to get you guys' body ready for this movie. We can't just be like, scripts. Okay.
Yeah. And so, that was the sort of gun training and combat training was the first day.
How'd you like that, by the way? Was that interesting?
Oh, man. Well, see, this is the interesting thing, is that I got a phone call from a friend of mine who I'd been working with later the year before. So this is like February of 2000 and, was it 2000 or 2001? 2001, I think.
2000.
Yeah.
Well, 2002 is when the film was
when it came out. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, obviously,
we filmed it
longer than that.
Yeah.
So this was 2001.
2001. Yeah.
Okay.
And this friend of mine phoned me up. She said, "I can't believe you're doing this," because we'd been sitting together while we were doing. We were working down in Chichester on a production of Pal Joey, and I'd been flicking through a magazine, and I saw an article about Angelina Jolie in training for Tomb Raider.
Oh, yes.
And I said, that's my dream. I said, one of the things I love so much about being an actor is that you have to learn new skills. Like for Dream Team, I had to learn to improve my soccer skills.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was, doing combat training. She was doing all of these things. And I said,
that must have
that's
been so
my
cool.
absolute dream. And she phoned me up and she said, I can't believe you said that and now you're doing it.
Right.
You're exactly what you said.
Exactly what you said. That's
is now happening.
Beautiful.
And I was like, oh yeah, you're right.
You're like, I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah. but we, there are what a great bunch of people, like
Yeah.
Eric Mabius and James Purefoy and Colin
He seems
Salmon
like
was
a
there.
cool guy. I mean, honestly, everybody on that set everybody in that film, including yourself, just seemed like genuine people. I mean,
Yeah.
was there anybody who was kind of a jerk, like, ugh, I'm Hollywood, don't talk to me. I've got a
No, because if anyone was going to be like that, it would have been Mila. Michelle, not at all. Like Michelle, it was almost like she just couldn't believe what was happening to her. She was just so
Yeah, that was really early
herself.
on in her career. I mean,
Yeah, she'd done Girl Fight. I didn't know who she was,
were
when
you
I met her.
you were probably, who were you most familiar with on the set then? Was it just Mila, or
Mila, yeah.
because she had done the Blue Lagoon, she had done, Dazed and Confused by that time. She
Fifth
done
Element.
Fifth Element. Oh my God, yes, how could
Yeah.
I forget that? Fifth Element.
Yeah.
So were you kind of like, man, I'm on set with like, freaking people in the industry, like big names. I mean, how was that for you?
Yeah, kind of. It was, well, what was interesting, I mean, because this was my first feature film.
Right.
But what was great is that the time that I'd spent on Dream Team, because it was such a Dream Team was such a kind of little cottage industry. It was all done on a shoestring budget, and it was like this big family, and you could go to the edit suite whenever you wanted. We'd sit in
Nice.
the edit suite,
Love it.
and so it was such a good training ground for young actors, because you just saw, and it was all single camera as well. So you just knew how the thing was put together. So when I walked onto the set, and day one of principal photography is me at the computer trying to open
Right.
that was literally day one.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the
The
best.
first week was all of that stuff in the control room, the lasers, and then and the last 2 days of filming were just me and Mila in the tunnel
Oh,
going down to turn off the Red Queen.
the Red Queen, right? Exactly.
Yeah. And so we had, on the Friday night, we had drinks. We used to have drinks every Friday night.
Very good, as you
And
should.
then we had all of the drivers, the transport guys,
Right.
would then take us out night clubbing, and they knew all of the places to go in Berlin. And of course, they weren't drinking because they were the drivers.
Right.
Man,
That's
it
so
was cool. And we'd
cool.
and you'd go straight to the front of the line at the
Oh
clubs,
man.
because there you are with Mila and all of that,
Well,
straight in.
so you
Man, it
guys
was good.
had so so you're telling me the whole cast would go out to party, like
Uh-huh.
everybody,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
medic, one,
Yeah,
you know,
Liz. Yeah.
yeah,
Liz,
Liz. Oh
Colin
my gosh,
Salmon.
she's so hot. Colin,
Yeah.
everybody. So everybody.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And but at the end of the first week,
Yeah.
Paul, when we were having drinks
Right.
after filming on the Friday, so
Uh-huh.
we filmed the whole the sequence going down the tunnel
Mhm.
into the Queen's Chamber. As I said, last 2 days, me and Mila, and he came to me and he said, you have got to stop making Mila laugh,
He said that to
because
you?
because she's losing her voice. And the reason she was losing her voice is because she spent all this time screaming when
Right.
when the lasers are happening.
Right.
But yeah, we were like brother and sister, like laughing our heads off
Nice.
the whole time. Yeah,
So
we just got on like a house on fire.
so she was a pretty easy girl to get along with, Mila.
Yeah, really, really down to earth and really hardworking. I mean,
Nice.
we'd be like, she'd do a full week of filming, and then on the weekend, on the day off,
Mm-hmm.
she'd do some Prada shoot. She'd
Are
do a
you
modeling.
serious? Oh my God. She
She
was
was like,
nonstop then.
yeah,
Wow.
totally, really
Wow.
hard worker. Yeah, so it was, we were kind of blessed with the people that we were working with, and everyone was kind of excited about what it was we were doing.
Did you guys have any kind of idea how big the movie was going to be? Like, were you like, this is kind of going to be hit or miss, or was it like, or were you positive this was going to hit big?
It's kind of hard to remember. I was a newbie, you know, so I was naive to the economics and so on. I didn't know what certain things meant.
Got you.
All I knew was I had this big part in a big movie. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know,
You're like, that's all that
great.
matters.
Yeah. But and the thing about the Resident Evil franchise is it had been around for over a decade.
Yes,
and
that's right.
and you know, George Romero was going to direct it. Like, it wasn't until Paul wrote the first movie that anyone was actually happy with a version of the concept.
Hmm.
You know.
Oh, so Hollywood was turning it down, or what was going on?
Oh no, people had been trying to write the movie version of Resident Evil for, you know, a long time.
Oh, so even before Paul.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So what the story goes, the story that Jeremy tells is that he just couldn't get hold of Paul for like a weekend, phoning him and leaving messages, and he's like, well, he's gone AWOL, you know, he's his business partner.
Right, yeah.
And then like on the Monday, Paul phones him up and he said, I've been playing this game Resident Evil. He said, we've got to find out who's got the rights.
Oh my God. Yes. I remember I used to watch the behind the scenes, right?
Right, yeah.
This ties into what you're saying, because I remember watching the behind the scenes because I love seeing production. And I remember Paul specifically saying he played the game, he fell in love, or actually he saw people at his office playing the game, and that he fell in love with it. And he said, we have to make this into a movie. And he had already had experience by that point with movie making or game adaptations, because he did Mortal Kombat, and he did
That's
that
right.
with tremendous success.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's awesome that he fell in love with the game like that.
Yeah. And so Jeremy then went and discovered that Constantine Film had the rights, who were the German producers. And then Paul submitted his concept and everyone went, we like this.
Yeah.
And Capcom liked it. And then, so he then, you know, wrote the script from there.
Mm-hmm.
And also for Jeremy and Paul, they'd had a lot of success young, as you say, Mortal Kombat, and they did Event Horizon and
That's
so
right.
on.
That's right.
And then I think it was Soldier they had a flop with, and
that was
again
Casper Van Dien. No, that was
it was Kurt Russell and
Kurt Russell. I didn't know that was his.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it had not done anything, and you know, so they kind of ended up in director jail, you know, which I didn't understand at the time.
Interesting.
And they definitely saw this as their chance, their comeback chance,
an opportunity, yeah, to kind of bring everything back to fruition. Like, man, we got to really. Wow, that's beautiful. See, I wouldn't have known that, but this is wonderful that you're telling me this, because this just kind of makes everything pieced together so nicely. Like, who would have thought that he was in some kind of like trouble, and he was like, man, I really got to do something. I need to make moves quick. Otherwise, I don't know where my career's headed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the thing was that he'd spent a lot of time on the script for that very reason. That, you know, and they'd had a reasonable sized budget, not excessive, but enough.
He mentioned,
but he was like, I've got to maximize. So, like, for example, one of the biggest CGI sections was Kaplan's death.
Oh man, the worst part of the film. Worst part, hands down.
Well, by the time they got there, because it was supposed to be in 3 parts.
Oh.
Is that so? The bit that you see is the liquor rips me out of the train.
Rips you out of the train, then you were like,
yeah, and then they were going to cut to the top of the train, and he was going to pull me and the chair out, and then you're going to cut to the top of the train, and he's holding me in the chair, looking at me.
Oh no!
And then he would throw me down the corridor. And so we actually filmed. We put a green screen on the roof of the studio.
Okay.
And suspended me from a cable like a 40 feet, and then dropped me into a bag. Put the camera down and drop
What?
me into a bag because they were going to then spin that image of me come falling towards the camera.
Oh
And
man.
then the third, that was supposed to be done in miniature. And then the third shot was going to be that I hit the wall of the tunnel, and then the chair went spinning down the tracks and
My
shooting
goodness.
sparks everywhere.
So you went through this whole process.
Well, as I said, we filmed me dropping from the
Yeah.
ceiling
Right.
against the green screen. But then by the time we got to that point in filming, well, it was obviously late in filming, they were like, we don't have the budget anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But then what happened was that they went, so we don't actually know what happens to Kaplan.
See, okay, I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually a good thing. We don't know what happened to Kaplan. For all we know, he just, spun out on the tracks and was like, "Ooh wee, I gotta."
Or because literally the liquor pulls Kaplan out of the train and then comes straight back in.
That's right.
And so, and there's like on the front of the train, there was this kind of like a railing, that you could stand on.
Exactly.
And I remember it was Barrett Naluri, who was the second unit director, who he said to me, like when you do sequels, you actually want familiar faces. And so we're now seriously thinking about, did Kaplan survive?
You're kidding me. This was actually something they talked about?
Yeah.
Why didn't it go through? I have to know.
So it was finally, because I was like, well, so because I was saying, well, the thing is, right, Kaplan at that point is someone, he's been mauled by zombies.
Right.
Then he's been given the anti-venom.
Yes.
And then seconds later, he's been mauled by a licker. So it's anybody's guess what he could then become.
Right.
And also, if anyone can survive in the hive, it's him.
It's Kaplan,
because he's the computer expert.
That's right.
He knows how to open doors and close doors and everything.
That's right.
And I was like, you could go nuts with what
you could totally run with
kind
that.
of mutation he could go in or whatever. And I said, I don't reckon there's anyone like that exists in the Resident Evil universe.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah. But then it was actually when like a year later, the night before the premiere in LA, I went over for the Hollywood premiere.
Very nice.
And I was at Eric Mobius's place doing tequila shots, funnily enough.
Oh man, I wish I was there. I mean, I wasn't old enough, but we're gonna set it up. Don't worry, that's gonna happen.
Yeah. And Paul, right? We were on the phone to Paul, and he'd just been given the green light for the second movie. Oh. And he said to me on the phone, he said, I finally decided Kaplan dies because I'm going a different way. So I'm not staying in the hive. I'm going out. So,
AKA, I want this to be about my new wife, Mila Jovovich.
Well, yeah.
Because that's kind of the priority now. Freaking jerk.
Yeah. So, obviously, from my point of view, it was a wasted opportunity.
Well, you know what, Martin, when I'm totally serious about this, I'm actually planning on doing like a fan-made film. I have people, in the industry that I know, and I'm not kidding you, dude. I've been thinking about this since I saw the film. I'm like, there has to be a fan-made film, and I would love to include you in it.
I'd love to be involved.
Absolutely.
Great.
No, we got to set that up, man. I'm totally serious about it. I've talked to people like, Martin Cruz was the face of this movie, and for him not to continue in the series, to me, is kind of like a disservice to Resident Evil fans like myself who loved you in your character. And I think you are very much a part of the Resident Evil universe as much as Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield, So, no, thanks, seriously, man. No, I would love to have you a part of that project. 100%.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the fans would love it too. They're like, there he is. That's the guy we've been missing. So yeah, that'd be good. But so yeah, okay. The movie, you guys are at the premiere. Shot's done. You hear the bad news. So I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, that might have hurt. But at the same time, how did it feel knowing that your movie was coming out, and like how was that experience?
Well, that was surreal. In fact, I had the full Hollywood experience in a day. It was really my first. I'd spent a week in Hollywood. After I finished filming Resident Evil, I actually went back to Australia, and on the
Mm-hmm.
way, I went to LA for like a week or 10 days and had a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of meetings and things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, I had to go back there to do the ADR. Um,
Mm.
you know what ADR is.
I don't. Could you please
The,
enlighten me?
yeah, so ADR is where um, uh, they might re-record dialogue or
Ah,
add we don't have this bit of information, we're going to change it, or there was the audio
got
wasn't
you.
good here. So it's basically you go into the recording studio,
It's voiceover
and
then at that point.
yeah, it's kind of voiceover
Okay.
stuff. So I was back for that in the October. It was again me and Michelle. We had a wild night.
We need details. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, because she had her audition for Blue Crush the
Blue
next morning.
Crush, that's right.
Yeah, and I had her out on drinking tequilas the night
Oh
before.
man. Now who outdrink
It-
who? Who outdrank who at that
uh,
session?
everyone was pretty. Everyone was pretty good, although she was pretty seedy. Well, she said one because she had to go surfing the following morning with the director,
Oh,
and
so
she said,
she.
do you want to come? And I declined stupidly. I should have gone.
Yeah, that was kind of dumb.
But
What the hell's wrong with you, man? You
yeah.
decline surfing with a hot chick in California? Come on, man. Well, now you know.
Yeah, I think that tells you how much we'd had to drink.
Oh,
I think I was not feeling the best.
you're like, yeah.
But yeah, so as I said, I flew from Australia to LA, and that night we were at Eric's place, and then I had an audition the next morning for a Warner Brothers pilot, and I was going, why have I said yes to do this? I'm here for the premiere and have a party. But somehow I managed to be there at 10 o'clock the next morning,
Good.
and long story short, I went through the whole pilot process in one day.
Wow.
Where they, normally you have your first meeting, and then if you get through, then you do your first test, which is studio. You audition for the studio heads. Means you're down to the last 5 or 6 for the role. And then if you get through that, then you go to network, which means you're down to the last 1, 2, or 3 for the role, for the heads of the network and the studio.
Got it.
And this pilot, for some reason, they did the whole process in one day. So I rocked up in the morning, and it had a lot, it has, when you've got a movie opening that night, there's heat.
Absolutely.
And that's what counts in Hollywood, so.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, it was my first real experience of kind of pilot season and so on. And I went through the whole process in one day. I ended up auditioning in the morning, and then by the end of the day, there's 3 of us.
Wow.
And had had to engage the services of a lawyer, and had to negotiate the contract, sign the contract, because you agree terms before you do your final audition for a pilot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I had that whole experience, and then went home, put a suit on, and a limo turned up out the front of the place, and me and my buddies got in the back of the limo. There's a full bar in the back, and we drive into Hollywood.
So it's safe to say the Martin Cruz life is not a bad life.
on this day it was surreal though. And then we went drove into the Man's Chinese Theatre in Hollywood, and pulled into the underground car park, and a limo pulled in behind, and that was Mila and Paul. And we get out, we go up in the elevator, and the doors open, there's a red carpet leading from the elevator through, and we walk out, and there's all this press, and there's Michelle, and she ran, like jumped on me on the red carpet.
I don't know. I think old Cap and Rain, I think there was more to this story than meets the eye.
Yeah. And then we go in and watch the movie. It was the first time I'd seen it, obviously.
So
And
how was that? How was the experience of you watching Resident Evil?
as I say, surreal, man. And we watched this movie. What was interesting is in the filming that Paul was very secretive about the rushes. He didn't show anyone the rushes.
Hmm.
Do you know what the rushes are? The what they filmed that day.
Okay.
The stuff that's called everything that they filmed that day is called the rushes. So they would watch it, in a kind of closed with the editor and the producers and whatever.
So they didn't want to.
So none of the crew got to see. None of us got to see. I'm sure Mila did, but none of us got to see what we were filming.
How does that work exactly, though? I mean, I see. My thing is, I assume that you can kind of film and then you see what happened, and then you're like, wait a minute, I don't think that's good. Can we do back that again?
Yeah. So they have a video. They have video connected to, and this is back then we were shooting on film. This wasn't digital.
Oh man.
But they have a video recording of what you've just done, and so literally on the director's monitor, you can come out and you go, I see what you mean.
Oh, okay, yes.
I need to move further left or whatever.
Right, that's what I was referring to.
But in terms of watching the finished, how it looks on the film and everything. And so at the wrap party, the editor put together this gag reel for the cast and crew to give them a taste of what it was that we made.
Right.
And it went, have you been feeling, like the words came out and said, have you been feeling, and I think it was like anxious. And then there was this montage of all of the characters going, what, like, okay. And then it said another emotion. And then there was all this, and then it said, well, don't worry, because you've just been a resident of the evil. And then it went,
nice.
Dum, 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 and this like hard rock.
Oh, I think it was Slipknot might have, yeah.
And it was, they had to play it twice because everyone was blown away.
Oh my God.
They had no idea that that was what was coming, and because also when you're on a film set can be the most boring place in the world if you're not involved.
I've heard you mention that in other interviews. So what do you mean by that? Tell me about that.
So, for example, one of the scenes that I may have mentioned this in the other interview is when we're on the train station. We first get off the train.
Yes.
So we were in the brand new subway station underneath the Reichstag, and it hadn't been. It was literally a concrete hole in the ground. It hadn't been completed.
I see.
So there was no lights or anything. It was like this black hole in the ground, and we lit it and put all these crates on the platform, and
really?
all that was there was concrete, and they put track down. They put, they created this train station. Yeah.
Wow.
In terms of what was on the platform and everything. And when they get off the train, if you watch the movie again, you don't really see Kaplan get off the train.
I guess
it's
not.
Because Michelle, Rain gets off first, and so on, and so I wasn't involved in the shooting of that scene. So I was up where the control room was, up the stairs, watching them film it.
I see.
And so you're in this big, wide, open area with a few crates stacked along the middle of the platform, and then you've got the cast coming off the train doing all of their commando stuff as if there are corners to look around. There's no corners. Like all you got to do is go, right, there's no one here. You know what I mean? But they've got to do all this stuff.
Right.
And then on the other side of the platform is the Steadicam operator with his assistant walking along at this slow pace. And so there's this, in this open area, it looks so slow and pathetic, really. You go, this is, Then
Uh-huh.
when you see what they do in the film is that the Steadicam is on a long lens in close up,
Mm.
and so as he's moving across, and with like even moving slowly
Mm-hmm.
on a Steadicam, it looks like you're moving faster. And every time a crate crosses the screen,
Okay.
they put a sound effect, and then they cut to a different shot of like one, and then
Uh-huh.
Mila,
Right.
and so it's a completely different experience of what you're producing to what it
Interesting.
actually looks like
Right,
when
of
you're filming it.
course. I see.
And then there's the soundtrack underneath, and and all of that is in Paul's head. That's his vision.
Right, right.
That's how we're going to create this. But everyone else is just going, what do you want us to do? Oh, okay.
Oh, I see.
You know
So
what I mean?
basically it's like it's kind of like watching an artist at work. Like you don't know what the hell's going on, but you can
Yeah.
clearly see that they're in the zone and that this is going to have a cool end product, but in the
Well, you
moment
don't know that it's going to look cool. You think this looks really pathetic, but you
I see.
don't understand what the lighting's doing. You don't understand
Uh unless
how
you're like
close the
right.
focus is. The different, when you're that close, it looks like you're moving really fast, even though the Steadicam operator is like
Uh-huh.
moving at a very slow pace.
Right.
So yeah, they showed us that trailer, and it just, everyone was just
You're like, what
totally
the
blown away.
hell? Like this is not at all what we were seeing through our eyes. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Was it that kind of a reaction?
Yeah, yeah.
Man.
It was great.
So how did you feel when you had, I mean, obviously we know it was pretty it was a pretty crazy experience to see yourself, but you had never, up until this point, you had never seen yourself on one of those types of cameras.
Not on the big screen like that,
Not on the
no.
big screen. So what was that like? Like what was going through your
As I
Martin, what
say,
was going through your head?
surreal. Yeah, surreal. I mean, the moment that I remember the most, I guess, understandably, I mean, I'm sitting there with my manager, and in this packed theater, and is at the end of the movie, then my name comes up on the screen on its own
Really?
in the credits. Yeah. When the credits come, it's
Uh-huh.
like, and there was my name. And I was like, man, this
Oh my God.
this
That
is
must have been
too
surreal.
too crazy.
When you
Yeah,
saw Martin Cruz up there on the, I mean,
yeah,
I'm always looking at that name. I'm like, I'm like, dude, there's Martin, man.
yeah,
That been,
yeah.
I
So
imagine for you that must have been like, oh my God, like it's official now, like pimping right there, just in bold.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
official.
And then it was, so we had a party that night, and then the next night, and again, I didn't know anything about how numbers work in Hollywood, but
Sure.
they can predict the weekend off the first night.
Interesting.
And the numbers came in from the first night,
Mm-hmm.
and Bernd Eichinger, who was the head of Constantine Film, and they were like, we all went to his house in the Hollywood Hills
Okay.
to celebrate, because they were like, this is going to be
This
a
is
big
gonna be a
weekend.
hit.
We
Yeah.
opened second, because we opened the same weekend as the first
Fast and
installment
the,
of Ice Age.
oh, Ice Age. Okay.
So Ice Age was first. I mean, you're not going to beat a kids movie like that, but yeah, we were second, and I can't remember the figures in the end of the opening weekend, but the movie itself did over 100 million
Oh man.
worldwide.
And how did that make you
And
feel? I mean, obviously you said numbers weren't a big thing, but I mean, just knowing that you were part of that, how were
yeah,
you?
yeah, no, it was. I mean, it was phenomenal. It
I bet
was.
you were probably like all your childhood was probably flashing through your mind, like, oh my God, like how am I here right now? Like this is actually happening. You know what I mean? I would have freaked
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Well, it was good to, as I say, like getting on the film set and going, I know how this works. I've got this.
Right.
I remember years later, I worked with Judi Dench
Ah, yes.
in at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and it kind of freaked me out to begin with, because I'm like, oh my God, that's Dame Judi Dench. But I had to So what I did was, like, I know how to be an actor on stage working with an actress.
Sure.
So I know how to offer, and I know how to ask, and I know how to, create a scene with an actress. So that's my way of dealing with this,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then every now and then, of course, because she knows how to be an actress in a scene with an actor,
right.
I'd make a suggestion. She'd go, "Oh yeah, great," and then I'd be like, "Oh my god,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that, when these moments happen in your career or whatever, where the thing you've been dreaming of suddenly lands or whatever,
Yeah.
it's, if you've been developing your craft and putting the hours in and working hard, then you have that to hang on to,
Right.
and not get carried away with the enormity of it or
Right.
what have you.
Right. So, like, basically for you, since you were a pretty well seasoned actor, in my opinion, up until this point, because you had gotten your feet wet with Dream Team, and you did various other projects. So when it came time to Resident Evil, and not even just Resident Evil, but anything after that as well, like, do you come to a point where you're like you mentioned, like, I got this, like, this is no longer like you mean, obviously we freaked out on the opening of Resident Evil, but then do you get to a point where you're like, this is kind of like second nature, like I like you said, I understand how this works, I understand what to do here, this is my life, this is my job, this is what I live for, kind of thing?
Yeah, as I say, for me, certainly it's the craft.
The craft, exactly.
As you go, I always have the craft, whether I'm learning lines in my bedroom or whether I'm on stage in front of thousands of people. It's the same, and so therefore I can focus on that and not on what might be overwhelming or
good.
do you know what I mean? And so
Absolutely.
that's the thing that you get comfortable with, is I know how to work through this to, regardless, this might be this amazing director or this might be this amazing actress,
Exactly.
or, but I know how to practice my craft. I know.
Right. I guess that's what I'm getting at in terms of like aspiring actors, actresses out there who are listening. Obviously, a lot of them are probably asking themselves, or not even just actors, but I mean anybody who is an artist. I think that applies across the board, and I guess what they're probably asking themselves is, how do they do it? Like, what is it that makes a good actor or a musician or a good artist? And I think you just described that very beautifully. And I feel like it's just a matter of always remembering the craft, because I feel like that's what we see on the big screen. We're not seeing this guy who's not confident with himself. We're very much seeing this person who is very much immersed in their art. We're seeing that art, and that's what keeps your head leveled. Is that right? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just kind of.
Yeah, because then, if you're going after fame or fortune or whatever, they're kind of fleeting, empty things. But if you're looking to find the truth in a moment, or to find the truth of a character, or and serve the theme of the piece, or all of these things, and in music terms, if you're looking to, if you write music or whatever, if you're looking to express whatever it is you want to express, and you can kind of get a sense of, you'll never get it perfect, which is a great thing. You'll never go, yep, got it, done.
That's interesting.
But you'll go, I kind of was in the zone there, or I got close there, or.
Right.
I remember there was this one moment on in the Queen's Chamber in Resident Evil was just me and Mila, where I have to take the boards out of the. I'd say
yeah, when she has to reboot, but she's been damaged.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and Mila's just sitting there, and I'm spouting this dialogue. I think they actually cut down the amount of dialogue, but and it was very what I had to do, because it was quite cheaply made, this thing. So to make it look like it was this highly technical thing, whereas literally I pressed this button and it forced this thing out over some little rollers.
Yes, that was the mainframe right there, right?
That's right. You get a mainframe. Yeah. And I remember this feeling of like silence. There's hundreds of people outside the set,
right,
or watching the monitor or whatever.
Yes.
But this kind of
good.
I don't know if it was part of the focus or whatever, and it's just the two of us, and it was like everything was down focused to this, and I'm explaining what's going on and everything, right. And it was this sort of really calm, quiet feeling. And then after we, Paul's like, cut, that was great, let's move on, whatever. And a member of the crew came up to me, who I hadn't really met, and he was like, just like that was
beautiful.
But it wasn't anything that I'm consciously gonna.
I see.
I
see what you're saying.
Focus on what is this moment about?
So you were very much immersed in the character. That's what it sounds like. In this scene, you were Kaplan 100%. But
at that moment,
at that
the rest
moment.
of the time you're working at it. But there was something about that particular moment that, we finished, and it's like I felt the silence.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was weird.
And yeah. Man, I mean, what's funny about that? Now, I'm glad you brought that up. My niece, my 10-year-old niece, her name is Bella. Mm-hmm. I've showed her this movie many times. She's probably sick of it by now. I made her memorize the Red Queen's lines because she does such a good Red Queen. You have no idea.
Really?
Oh, dude, you should hear her. She's like, you're all going to die down here. Like, she does it so eerily well, right? So her and I reenacted your scene.
Really?
I have it. I'll send it to you. I want to get your thoughts. I mean, our version isn't as good as yours, but she because she's very animated. She's such a smart, little girl, and she loved the movie. So I was like, we were messing around one day. I said, you know what, let's just reenact this. Let's do something creative. Let's have a creative hour. I want to get your juices going in your mind. Mm-hmm. So we went ahead and reenacted it, and I was blown away at her for one thing, her acting, but also her accent and how well she was able to pull off the Red Queen. And I mean, I was a terrible Kaplan. You're the OG, man. You're the original, but. It came out. Her version of the Red Queen came out so well. I have to show you. You have to see this. It's great because the whole scene ends. I zoom on her face. I zoom into her face because we made the whole thing on a little application on my phone, like to make like little short films. And then I zoom in on her face. And you remember in the film when the Red Queen turns her face and says, you're all gonna die down here,
you're
right?
All going to die down here.
Yeah. And then you hit the button and that's it. She did that part so well. You have to see it. I can't wait to show you. Yeah. But yeah, man. Man.
Hey buddy, I got to
I was gonna say
people coming over.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
This has been great though.
It has been great. Yeah. I mean, thank you so much, Martin. You have no idea how honored I am to have had you on this show. It's been a freaking it was on my bucket list, and now I can die a happy man. Thank you so much for being on Real Talk Underground, Martin. Honestly, man, I can't thank you enough. You've been very pleasant. You're an awesome person. Keep doing what you're doing. Have a lovely Easter. All right.
Thanks, Robbie. Same to you.
Yeah, and thanks for being on the show. I hope to have you on again sometime.
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure.
Thanks, Martin. All right. Well,
Thanks, buddy.
have a good one.
Same to you.
All right. Take care.
Ciao.
Bye bye.